one day, randomly, on my Instagram, I followed all metal guys, and one of these guys was Mark Holcomb of Periphery. I commented on his stuff, and then one day he commented back, and I was like, holy shit, I had so long put all these metal musicians on a pedestal, and I was like, oh, cool, I just sent a DM, and I said, yo, next time you're in town, I would love to, cater you guys on me. Yeah, that just kind of steamrolled into me keeping track of all the other bands coming into town. And I just started offering catering, just as kind of my token of appreciation. And typically I was rewarded with, a backstage pass, and I got to meet the band and hang out. And sometimes, I would say, hey, listen, come to the restaurant before your show if you have time. And some of them did. So that's kind of how it started. I just decided one day I'm going to start going to shows again. And then I just got the idea to start catering bands, and that's how I kind of befriended everybody.
Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I most certainly did. I took the time to slow down a little bit, to enjoy life a little bit more, hanging out with my family, just really, really trying to cherish each moment. Sometimes we let things go by too quickly, and I personally am trying to cherish these moments, and I strongly suggest that you do the same. Before we jump into today's episode, I would just like to ask you to follow the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I'm also asking you to rate it and write a review, because when you do that, you could be the person that sways someone's decision to become a new Vox and Hops head. When people are looking for a new podcast to listen to, what do? They scroll down, they read the reviews. If the reviews are favorable and reflect their values, then they will most likely give that podcast a chance. So if you take the time to write a review for the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, I would be extremely, extremely grateful for that. Now, on today's episode, I'm with Chef Brian Tsao, who plays guitar in a killer band called Lost Becomes. They have just launched a new track today called Moments. When I finished my conversation with Brian, I asked him how he would feel about me playing that track in the intro of his episode, and he said, let's do it. So get ready, everyone. This is Moments from Lost Becomes.
Found the key, left inside the line.
good. So damn good. Tasty riffs. I love the rhythmical chug, the energy. I'm all about this track. Moments. Great track. It also has a very, very poignant meaning behind it. You should go check out the video. It reflects more upon that. Now, let's jump into my episode with Chef Brian Tsao, the guitarist of Lost Becomes, and one of the world's most metal chefs. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox and Hops episode number 261.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Brian Tsao, the guitarist of Lost. Sorry, I said it. Let's do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Chef Brian Tsao. He plays guitar for Lost Becomes. He has a YouTube channel called I Try So You Don't Have To. He used to host and still does host Taste of Metal from Metal Ejection. He is a very famous cook, and he's a metalhead. I had to have him on the podcast. How are you doing, Brian?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I am really looking forward to this one because it has been a long time since I've had a really good beer. And I made sure to get some really good beers today.
Excellent. Let's start right off with that.
Yeah.
Tell me about your very first beer, Brian.
Oh, man. I remember it clear as day. My first beer, I was like 15 years old. I was in middle school. I was still living in the States at the time. And, we were being bad, so we went to a store, a deli, bodega, whatever you call it, that we knew would sell to underage kids. We bought Corona beers and Heineken beers. And, Corona was the beer you had to have. That was the good stuff. And, I drink it out of nostalgia these days. But, I remember taking that sip and just being completely fucking revolted. It was just the most disgusting thing I had ever tasted, and I pretended to drink it the entire day, so I would like bring the beer to my lips and not actually drink it. I just wanted to look cool. That was my first beer memory. It was disgusting.
As your palate evolved, where did craft beer come into your life?
There are two very specific moments, and I think one of those moments isn't necessarily craft beer, but it opened up my eyes to what beer can be. So that memory being when I lived in Beijing, China. So when I was 15 years old, my parents sent me to an exchange program in Beijing, China, and I went to an international school. And close by this international school was a Lufthansa hotel. And in this Lufthansa hotel, they had a Paulana restaurant. And I was just intrigued because living in Queens, New York, there weren't really German restaurants. And I just, looking in and kind of seeing that beer garden aesthetic and it was just as German as it gets, right? And I was just very enticed by that and very curious. And I went in and at that time, I had been drinking beer semi-regularly at that point. And I ordered a Paulaner, and it was just this completely different depth of textures and flavors and aromas that the Corona clearly didn't have. So that really, and that's like a common beer in Germany, right? That's almost like their Budweiser almost. But for me, that was just so many levels above what I was accustomed to at that point. So that was one memory. The other memory being when I went to culinary school when I was in my early 20s. And so the culinary school I went to is in Hyde Park, New York, which is, kind of upstate, in between New York City and Albany. It's like right in the middle of the state. Beautiful college town, and it's a culinary school. It's one of the best culinary schools in the country. And there was this amazing beer store not too far away. And I was one of the guys that was over 21 that was able to, go regularly. So I'd pick up beer for a bunch of my classmates because a lot of them were younger than me. And I just remember this is my first memory of just seeing this massive, massive selection of beers where you can get, fresh poured stuff from the tap into growlers. You can get, there was just an endless amount of of bottled beer from all over the world. And I remember the one beer that I went back to regularly was some banana beer. Of course, something fruity, and but it was just, again, it was just another time where I was like, wow, there's a lot more depth and really there's a lot of artistry that comes with beer.
Absolutely, but a banana, it's going from that Paulaner to a banana beer, it's almost sort of the same. No, it's the same world, because a Paulaner, it definitely is a Hefeweizen that has a lot of those like clovey and banana feel to it, which comes from the Belgian yeast there.
Yeah, a lot
German
of
yeast, sorry.
yeah,
Yeast.
it has. I guess I gravitated towards that, and I think you can kind of see a theme here of the type of beer I tend to gravitate towards. But that particular beer, it had a very similar texture, and there's something about that texture of beer I really enjoy. It's very heavy, unfortunately, so you can't drink too much of it, or at least I can't. I can't handle that much of it, but it's definitely my go-to, something like a Hefeweizen.
Exactly, which is where we're going right now. Vox and Hops
Yep.
is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. So what beer are we going to virtually share on your side there?
Okay, well, so I went into the beer store only intending to get 2 beers. I literally said to the lady, I want one easy drinking, because I like easy drinking beer, something that you can sip on all day and have many of. And then I asked for something a little heavier. And then I went in there and I walked out with 4 beers.
Good sales lady.
Yes, very good sales lady. And I'm a sucker for customer service. If I went into a department store and customer service was like, yes, buy this t-shirt, and you know what, buy some crack cocaine, and they gave me amazing customer service, I would buy the crack cocaine, because I respect customer service so much. And this particular place, and I'm going to shout it out, Astoria Beer and Cheese in Astoria, Queens, fantastic customer service. The food, the place smelled phenomenal, because they serve food there. I didn't try it. I didn't have time. I ran away from my daughter's dance class to pick up some beer for this episode, but I highly recommend it. Amazing customer service. Yeah, so I'm going to start with this blood orange wheat. We're continuing on this fruity theme here. This is a lager. This is not a Hefeweizen, but I'm in the mood for something refreshing. I spent a lot of time outdoors today, and I would like something nice and bright.
Wonderful. It is warming up where we can go outside.
Yes.
It is nice. Being in Montreal, it was, we had a very nice winter. We were very lucky, but it's nice to have the sun up past 4 p.m.
Absolutely.
And to spend the afternoons out, especially with young kids.
Yeah. What do
so
you
crack
drinking,
that?
man?
Yeah, I got something wild for you. It's the closest thing to food and metal that I could find. This is a BreWskey, one of Montreal's most hyped up breweries, and they teamed up with a even more hyped up brewery, Messorem Bracitorium, from Montreal as well. And this was for their anniversary a few weeks ago. This is their last wish. Now, this is a wild brew. This is a Cheesecake Sour, clocks in at 10%. It's got strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, cherries, Oreos, cream cheese, vanilla, and it says lactose, but I had the guys on the podcast and they told me that they had printed the cans and finally there's no lactose in this beer.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And I am not into sour beers personally, but I would love to try that. That sounds amazing.
This is wild. They're both insane breweries up here, just killing it. I'm going to crack this.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the... Let's crack. Let's pour it out, and we'll do a proper cheers.
Oh, I don't have the glass, but it's okay.
I should add that to my list of things to say.
Oh, that's a cool glass too. Nice.
Hell yes. It smells amazing. I can smell it.
It looks amazing. That color is awesome.
Cheers.
All right, cheers. Cheers.
Woo, you got the raspberries on the nose.
Oh, this is great. This is exactly what I was looking for.
Ooh, it's sweet.
Yeah?
It's got like a crazy fruity tang. All those fruits come in, the creaminess of the cream cheese. Cream
That's
cheese.
Incredible.
The Oreos. It's 10%, but you would never know. It's
killer. I was about to ask, does the alcohol really come forward?
Killer.
You have to be careful of those beers.
They're sippers as much as you feel like you should just make it go away.
Yeah.
Let's dance into the soundtrack of your youth. When you were growing up in your parents' or guardians' house, what music was playing when you were not in control of the radio? What music did your parents or guardians listen to?
Oh, that's an easy one to answer. I remember it so well. Is my mom loved the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
She was a huge Beatles fan. And I remember we were driving in the car. We were going somewhere, and I just asked her straight up, like, "Who's this on the radio? I really like this." You know, it's just all those super classic Beatles tunes. You know, "Hey Jude" and you know, "8 Days a Week" and "Hard Day's Night," all that type of stuff. I just absolutely fell in love with that music, and that was my first memory of. That was, in fact, my first memory of music as well.
Wow. And honestly, on the podcast, I'm pretty sure that the Beatles get mentioned more than anything else. I get that the Beatles, Kiss, top two for sure, for sure.
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
I mean,
Take
classic.
me to your first live music experience. Do you remember the first show you went to go see?
A couple of they like kind of blur together a little bit. You know, for me, it's one of two shows. I'll go with this one like more obscure show, um, which is came back from China. I was living in China already. I didn't go to my first show until I was like 16, 17, something like that. And it was for a like noise rock slash ska slash, you know what I mean? It was just like it was a lot of ska. I remember that. And there was this one band that like blew my little fucking mind apart. It was called the World Inferno Friendship Society. They have a huge following here in New York. I know that for a fact. I could be wrong. I think they may be still be together because I don't remember where, but I was either listening to a podcast or some obscure freaking YouTube video, and someone mentioned them, and I was kind of blown away. Like, oh, so I'll tell you what, when this band, it was like a 70-piece band, just one of those crazy huge ska bands. At the end of the night, each guy must have taken home like 50 cents by the time they split, you know, the merch money and all that stuff. Like, I have no idea. It was just so many members in that band. But man, did they put on a show. And I've always been a ska fan, you know, like the second wave of ska, that's super kind of poppy type of ska. I'm huge into that. Love that stuff. And this band, like, it was just that to the umpteenth degree, if not a bit more indie rockish. But there were just so many members to the band, just big, loud, freaking, you know, big, loud music, amazing showmanship. And I just remember my eyes being glued to them, you know, almost the entire show. It was pretty wild.
I almost think like ska bands are like bands that can't say no to their friends. They're like, yeah, you can be in the band. You know, versus metal, it's like, no, we got a guitarist. You're done.
Right, right.
Maybe another time.
Yeah.
But the ska bands are like, come on, let's do it.
You know, I remember this band coming on stage, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I just, you know, and at that time I was very young. You know, my mind was like a sponge. I didn't really form my preferences yet. So I was just, but I just remember distinctly watching them come onto stage and like, what the hell is this? They even had the guy with the huge round like tuba thing.
Insane.
Is that what it's called? Like
the
gigantic one that like they always look like they're barely hanging on to it. They even had that dude. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. How about your last show before everything got shut down? Do you remember that one?
You know, I have such a hard time remembering which shows I've gone to. Like, there's been a few times where someone will talk about a show, and I'll be like, "Oh, I really wish I was there." And my buddy will look at me like, "You were there with me." You know, sorry. I mean, the last show I can remember going to, but I know it'll probably come to me exactly what was my last show will come to me at some point. But one of the last shows that I went to was Cannibal Corpse. Morbid Angel, and shit, there was someone else that played, and I just can't remember at the moment. But I basically haven't missed a Cannibal show since for the last like 4 years, 5 years. I've been to every single one that they've played in New York.
Which explains why George was wearing You're not your typical chef shirt when I talk to him.
So you noticed, huh?
Yeah. Which is actually how we set this up, because I went through a comment thing and I was like, I'm gonna reach out to this guy now.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I've been following this show, and I just, yeah. I mean, you're a very welcoming dude, and I love the premise. Drink beer and shoot the shit.
Exactly. Let's talk about cooking. What came first? Was it cooking or was it metal? What was your first love? The guitar or the kitchen?
Definitely. Well, I guess that's a little hard to answer, but I'm gonna stick with music and guitar first. Now, while I'm using that as my answer, the reality is I've been cooking since I was like 5 years old.
Hmm.
Completely by chance. My parents weren't home a lot; they were working a lot. Excuse me.
That happens.
They were working a lot, and I just remember watching Julia Child, the French chef,
Hell
and
yeah.
just being glued to her. It was so fucking boring, when you like look at it objectively, but she's just so hypnotizing and so into what she's doing, and her voice is just so interesting, and it really draws you in, and you can tell she's enjoying what she's doing. She knows what she's doing, so she's enjoying it, and she knows what she's doing. And I remember her making some bread, and I clearly remember her putting a mountain of flour and making a well and adding in the water. And I did that when I was 5 years old, and I put that shit in the oven and baked it and ate it. And my parents were shocked I didn't burn down the fucking house. Now, being a professionally trained chef all these years later, I thought back to that. I was like, wait, how the fuck is that possible? How did I make this leavened bread? Because, you need yeast. And I know this is an Asian house. We don't have no fucking yeast. You know what I mean? So I just couldn't figure it out. I was like, did I make that shit up? Like, have I been telling this lie all these years? And I realized one day when I was walking through the supermarket, what I had used was Aunt Jemima's self-rising flour.
Ah.
And that is how the bread leavened and was so soft. I just kind of figured it out by accident. I was like, oh shit, that's what I used. That has to, because I remember the packaging from my youth, and just self-rising. That kind of unlocked it. But yeah, I mean, for me, guitar and heavy metal was clearly my first love, because while I have experienced cooking first in my life, I never ever considered it to be a potential career for myself, ever. I mean, not until my late 20s when I fell into the industry by accident. But I wanted to be fucking Kirk Hammett. I mean, that was my like life goal. I was obsessed with Metallica. I was obsessed with Dimebag Darrell. Those were like the two bands. I initially got into the music through the Beatles, and then stuff like Green Day and Radiohead and that type of stuff. But when I discovered specifically Pantera, and when I heard Mouth for War, I think my head almost exploded. I just could not believe music could be that heavy and that awesome. And there was so much groove. I'm super into groove. So it was just, I mean, once I heard that, it was over for me.
I obviously understand that metal and craft beer work very well together.
Yes.
How did you figure out that cooking and metal went together?
For a long time, I didn't. I really didn't. And I never kind of put the two worlds together, or never really thought about it in that way. I really wanted, I really just kind of looked at cooking as a career field, like, something I could build a future for myself. And it wasn't until later where like they just inevitably intersected. I just listened to metal all the time, and I was always the only guy in the kitchen that listened to metal. Like, as far as where I was working, it's very common to find metalheads in the kitchen, but in the early years of my career, I was the only guy listening to metal. So I was always the weird fucking weirdo. But it wasn't until I was running my first successful restaurant, where I basically called all the shots and was, putting on metal every day. And I don't care what the fuck you say. Like, this is what I want to listen to. It wasn't until then that like the spark hit me. to bring these two things together with like no real intention other than wanting to hang out in the scene and honestly just meet my heroes. So my first successful restaurant, which unfortunately closed during COVID, but I had long since left many years. They are located on 22nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenue, which is pretty much like almost in the middle of every or very close to every major venue, whether it's Madison Square Garden or Irving Plaza or Gramercy Theater or, Webster Hall. Like, it's all walking distance. PlayStation Theater, which is now defunct too, but these were all within walking distance venues. And one day, randomly, on my Instagram, I followed all metal guys, and one of these guys was Mark Holcomb of Periphery. They're one of like they're no longer a new band, but at that time, they were like my favorite new band. Like I got really into the first wave of gent. And I remember him commenting, I think it was, I commented on his stuff, and then one day he commented back, and I was like, holy shit, I had so long put all these metal musicians on a pedestal, and I was like, oh, cool, wow, his publicist responded to me, that's kind of what I thought of it at the time. And I just sent a DM and I said, yo, next time you're in town, I would love to, cater you guys on me. And that just kind of steamrolled. Like I would just kind of, and actually that Periphery show that I catered, I dropped off like $200-300 worth of sushi catering.
Wow.
If I had known you guys at that time, I probably would have done the exact same thing. But, and also keep in mind, next time you guys come to New York, that offer still stands, although it'll be different food. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, that just kind of steamrolled into me keeping track of all the other bands coming into town. And I just started offering catering, just as like kind of like my token of appreciation. And typically I was rewarded with, a backstage pass, and I got to meet the band and hang out. And sometimes, I would say, hey, listen, come to the restaurant before your show if you have time. And some of them did. Or if they didn't come to the restaurant when they came on their press circuits, then they would come to the restaurant when they have a bit more time after their day is done, right? So that's kind of how it started. I just decided one day I'm going to start going to shows again, and then I just got the idea to start catering bands, and that's how I kind of befriended everybody.
It's a great way to do things. We got to eat, and if we can eat something, delicious and free, the musicians are going to like you.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize that because I was so naive to how like the scene works, and just the general budgeting of a lot of our genre. Like people would, I know I was shocked when I first found out. I just kind of assumed everybody was on fucking, buses, double-decker buses and all that, which I've come to learn is not the case. But anyway, that was just my way of like giving back to the scene and wanting to get to know my, my heroes a little bit better,
it's
so
amazing.
to speak. Yeah. And it worked out for everybody.
It's amazing. I love it. And I think it's a great idea. And I would absolutely do the same thing. I do the same thing, but with beer. Now, as you were doing very well as a chef and cooking. Had you put being a musician a bit on the side, has that dream of becoming Kirk Hammett have to take a step back because your cooking had taken such a step forward?
Yes. Well, to go back a little bit, I mentioned earlier that I had lived in Beijing, China, and while I was living there was when I kind of really started diving deep into guitar. I think I started playing guitar maybe 6 months before I moved to Beijing. And when I got there, I didn't have any friends or, that was the main catalyst for me really practicing a lot more, was that I didn't have friends. So I would just be kind of stuck at home with my guitar and a couple of Metallica tablature books. And I was just obsessed with those books. And I can't play any of that stuff for the life of me now. And every time it got to the solos part, I get lazy and just, and
Let's just
that's when I
let's skip.
real
Let's skip. We'll skip.
let's skip let's stick to the riff, you know. So I realized I actually want to be Hetfield, which that was incredibly hard too in his pick technique, but that's besides the point. My dream was to become a metal musician, and I pursued it fully when I was living in Beijing. So I'm actually credited with having one of, if the if not the first independent touring metal band in China. Like, we kind of started this culture of carrying all our gear on our backs and going from town to town using the trains,
Oh my
because
God. Yeah.
train system in China is, number one, great, and also super inexpensive. So if you're willing to carry all your shit on your back, you can get from town to town super cheap. And we were too young to like rent a van. It was also a bit dangerous to drive those far distances, and there wasn't smartphones like there are today. So being these, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, we just went from town to town using trains. And we just kind of started the touring culture for independent bands after that. But I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I didn't really have a future with that kind of music in mainland China, because of the Communist Party, and they had, they tolerate things to a certain point, but ultimately, if you're not, if they don't want your thing to exist, it will get stamped the fuck out. You know what I mean? So I left. I saw, and also amongst a bunch of other things, almost dying in my own vomit from doing heroin one night. That was kind of the catalyst
Ooh.
for me. Yeah, I mean, some dark shit. Um, that was the catalyst for me to come back to the States. And when I came back to the States, I basically abandoned any idea of wanting to become a musician again. I would always keep guitar in my life, but I just had, and I always tried to put together a little band on the side, but I had no intention to really take it farther than writing music.
That's now you guys are rocking Lost Becomes.
Hmm.
This is happening. I think it's very interesting that you have positioned yourself as the metal chef, and now here is a huge springboard because you are Chef Brian Tsao, and here is your band now. So you're not starting at the bottom anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely fortunate in that regard, that I definitely have a leg up. There's no, like, I have no problem with admitting that. It is true. Like, I started Lost Becomes on a leg up, but I will say this. Lost Becomes started as just me wanting to like do a rip-off Hatebreed band. I just wanted to kind of like do these caveman riffs, and that were easy to play, and just maybe open up for Saint Vitus or something like that. Like, that was as far as I wanted to take it initially. And Lost Becomes started over 2 years ago, and we have not played a show yet. And that was by design, because we started as just this fun thing. This fun thing turned into, like, as we were writing songs, and the key to it is the other musicians in the band, right? And then, like, that special synergy and energy and creative energy that comes together when you combine your creativity with other people. And then it draws from all this energy, and you create something really different from what you may have done by yourself. There are a lot of bands where there's like one member that takes things from A to Z. And when I've tried to do projects like that, I fucking hate my stuff. Like, I just personally don't like my own material. But when I when I was writing with these guys, I was like, oh man, this is pretty fun, and still like within my wheelhouse. I can pull off these riffs, and I think this music is half decent. So we just kept writing and writing. Before we knew it, we had a record's worth of material. Before we knew it, we went into the studio and recorded everything. And then before we knew it, COVID happened. But that was a 2-year period from like the first jam to recording the material. And when COVID happened, we kind of said to ourselves, like, well, we can do nothing and just wait, or we can just utilize the tools that we have available to us and just put it out there. Even though we can't play a show, we will be able to play a show eventually. But why don't we just start laying down some groundwork now, and we'll see where we go from there. So that's exactly what we did. We partnered up with places like Metal Injection and Metal Sucks and Revolver to give them the exclusive on, the music video releases. And we use DistroKid, that's how we've been putting out all our music. And we just put in a lot of elbow grease into producing the content. All those music videos you see, all the content you see us put out, we do these introspective videos talking about, the song releases, and we do playthroughs. That's all in-house produced. Like, we're doing all that stuff from A to Z, basically A to Z ourselves. And being that I'm in the scene and all the other members are, they're veterans in the scene in their own right, we found a publicist. We know that bands use publicists, so let's get a press release out every time we put a single. That's all money we put in ourselves, and here we are. And we plan. We're putting out our next single May 11th. That isn't public knowledge, so VOX&HOPS gets the first exclusive on that. And we just plan to continue to put out singles.
That's awesome. I'm an independent band. Cryptopsy's been independent for many years. We just inked a deal, but we've been independent since 2012. So I know how hard it is, how much work, and you guys don't look like an independent band. So hats off to you guys.
Thank you.
Pushing Memory, which dropped last February. Killer track.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. I'm surprised you didn't put it out on Blacklight Media.
Oh, well, why do you bring up Blacklight Media?
The label ran by Chris Santos, where you used to work or did work with Beast in Essex in New York City. It's his restaurant. He's got that label, which is a partnership with Brian Slagle and Metal Blade. So I'm curious why it didn't come out there.
Well, I don't know, why didn't it come out there, Chris? Why? Why? No,
seems like a no-brainer to me.
I mean, listen, if we could make that happen, I would absolutely love that. I do my best to allow things to fall into place as necessary. So I will say that we've gotten some label interest, and we're considering it. But on the same note, we're not going to push for it too hard, because I think if things were meant to be, they will, the answers will present themselves, right? So do we stay that independent band, or do we, try to pursue a label deal? We'll see. But Chris is a friend. He was also my past employer, someone I respect highly. One of the most successful chefs that I know by a big margin. Great guy, lifelong metalhead. Has gotten me into every Slayer show I've been to in my life, which is amazing.
Those are good friends.
Yes. And, he's introduced me to Slagle. Slagle's also a great guy. But we'll see. We'll see. Blacklight Media has also been making some moves. They've been signing a lot of bands, one of which is I'll shout them out now. We've kind of become friends through social medias. Capra.
Yeah.
And I remember Santos, sending me Capra's stuff before it came out. It was like, this is a band I'm thinking of signing. What do you think? And I was like, oh shit, this band's really cool. Like, I'm in, like if you sign this band, I would be very happy. So Capra is a great band. Shout out to Tyler. I've exchanged a few DMs with him here and there on Instagram, but yeah, we'll see what happens with Blacklight Media. Very, very, you did your homework.
Yeah, I did it. But let's talk about what's going on. Beast in Essex, you mentioned before we started recording that something new's going on.
A Beauty in Essex.
Beauty in Essex. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all good.
I did my homework and then I scratched it out.
All good. Happens to the best of us. Beauty in Essex. So I was in between jobs. Not in between jobs, but I had left that previous restaurant that I mentioned about, Mira Sushi. I'd left that restaurant and was kind of freelancing for a while. And I was doing a wedding for the owner of Lucky 13 Bar in Brooklyn, another great metal venue. And Jeff is a dear, dear friend. And he is very close friends with Chris Santos. And they were throwing a wedding. They asked me to cater the wedding, and Chris Santos was going to cater the appetizers and like the first and second course. So that's kind of how I got introduced to his team. And lo and behold, a lot of them were metalheads, and I just kind of, we just got along right off the bat, and it was great. And not long after that, Chris hit me up and said he was looking for a chef to take over the head chef position at Beauty and Essex. And at that time, I had never worked at a restaurant that big, that busy. I thought my restaurant was busy. I mean, his place, my past restaurant was 1,500 square feet, 70 seats. Chris's restaurant is 10,000 square feet and 250 seats.
Wow.
So, I mean, just massive, and they only open for dinner and brunch on the weekends. My restaurant was open I'm sorry, not breakfast, for lunch and dinner. And we didn't do anywhere near the numbers of Beauty and Essex of what they do in just one dinner service. I mean, it's unbelievable the numbers that and the amount of food that they crank out. But they crank out this quantity of food and they do it with amazing quality and care. And it's all delicious. When I had never dined at Beauty and Essex prior to that. So, I mean, sorry, Chris, no, I mean this in the nicest way, but I was like, man, big restaurants like that always suck. That was just kind of my assumption that it would suck. And obviously it didn't because if that many people are going to eat there. But, I was just a snobby asshole that just thought, oh, you have to go to like the small, unique places where the chefs, whatever. I went, I tasted the food and I was blown away. And I just had to know how they do it at that volume with that much staff, keep the consistency. And I joined the team right away. I was like, I'm in, I'll do it. And honestly, I walked in there just completely scared shitless, pretending to, acting tough.
We have
acting tough, but I was completely scared shitless. Like, am I gonna survive here? The staff speaks Spanish 90% of the time, and my kitchen Spanish is okay. It definitely got much better after working there. But yeah, just Beauty in Essex is a really unique, awesome place. Chris really built something special there.
So what's going on now in your life?
So now I am opening up a gourmet sandwich shop in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It is a ghost kitchen concept. So it is primarily delivery, but there will be a pickup window. And I am doing gourmet sub sandwiches. So, we are going to have the classics. You can get your ham and cheese, turkey and Swiss, things like that. But the star of the show at my sandwich shop will be my unique combinations, things like Korean whole braised short rib, bone in the sandwich, kimchi slaw Asian pear. I have a German themed sandwich with pork chop and bratwurst and sauerkraut and spicy brown mustard and caramelized onions and sliced apples and, big, robust, saucy sandwiches because I feel like the sandwich scene in New York has gotten complacent. And we need a sandwich renaissance here in New York City. There's a lot of people doing good stuff, but no one doing what I'm going to be doing. Like I said, big, robust, saucy sandwiches. That's due to open this summer.
Very exciting.
I just confirmed the location this past Monday. I just signed on the PR team and the branding and graphics team today. That all got locked in. So hopefully in a couple months, I will be open.
Well, congrats to you. That's amazing. Cheers to that.
Thank you. Yeah, cheers to that. It's going to be called Mission Subs, and I'll tell you why it's called Mission.
Please.
So, our mission is to bring awesome sandwiches to New York City, some of the best sandwiches that you can get to New York City. But we also have a mission to just generally do good. So whether that's helping feed the arts, be it musicians coming into town, be it, not just arts, but community, helping out the local fire department with some catering, the police department, teachers unions. We're planning to donate part of the proceeds to mental health awareness. We just want to also kind of help, help our community do good and in general do good. So we're also, planning to pay our staff a higher wage, and things like that, things that are kind of going, that part is going a little against the traditional norms for, the restaurant business model. But yeah, we just want to make dope sandwiches and do good.
I love that. I love Vox and Hops is all about spreading positivity. So I'm 100% behind that. I love it. I love it. Will there be craft beer at Mission Sandwiches?
Not at this location because it will just be a ghost kitchen. So there's no dine-in. There's none of that. Excuse me. No real beverage. But trust me, I have given it thought. And, I hope that with the success of this, we can eventually open a brick and mortar where we can offer beer and wine and, all that good stuff.
I love it. I love it. I love it. To make a Lost Becomes brew or a Mission Sandwich brew, what beer would it be? A Chef
Oh.
Brian Tsao brew. What beer would it be? I know what style it's going to be already, but what would it be to let everyone know?
Oh, man, putting me on the spot. Yeah, I'm going to be torn between an easy drinking beer and a Hefeweizen. Those are always my go-to. I think if it was going to be just a purely Chef Brian Tsao beer, then I would go for the Hefeweizen. But if it was going to be like some kind of exclusive, beer that was attached to the band and or the sandwich shop, I'll probably go with something like a Pilsner. A little bit easier drinking because you go to a show, you're going to be there for a few hours, you're going to be socializing. So I would want you to have more than one type of thing. I want you to be enjoying your time with this beer, and by the time you leave, you've had 4 or 5 of them. And also our sandwiches are huge. So you're not going to be able to fit much into your stomach after a couple of Hefeweizens. You're going to need something, relatively light drinking.
Awesome, awesome. I'm wondering, you're very busy. How do you find the balance in life? How do you find the balance to do it all?
I don't. You have to, man. I've had this conversation recently with a few people, and you just have to really pick and choose your battles, and then also make sure you keep supportive people around you. And I've I've made a really strong effort to do that, to make sure that the people I surround myself with are going to support me in some way. And it's selfish. It is very selfish. Like my wife is extremely like gives me an extremely long leash, that allows me to stay out late at night and go to these shows. But not only these shows, but she knows that a big part of what I do is a lot of socializing. Um, I do content creation, between the web series and my social medias, and I just upped my YouTube videos to 2 a week now.
Mm.
And it's because not because I have more time, but because I got better at the editing and I got,
Mhm.
I acquired the right equipment and I know what I want. So a lot of the time has been cut down. So now I can squeeze two. Um, if you want to be an entrepreneur and if you want to do a lot of things, you have to make sacrifices. It's just that simple. And if you're looking to take those, vacations and have your weekends off and, get off of work at, 6 on the dot, then, hustle, then the hustle is not for you. It's I can't sugarcoat it because that's just the simple truth. If you want to do cool things, you have to put the time into it. So, um, I just like I said, I just have to pick and choose my battles. And there are times I have to say no to things, and I've been doing that more and more lately because I just if I take on any more, it's going to start to sacrifice my time with my family, which in
Mhm.
honesty, and this is the hardcore honest truth, I don't give my family as much time as I would like to personally, but again, I have a really supportive home life that allows me to do those things, so really think about who you keep in your life. Like, you know I hope this doesn't sound as terrible as it's about to sound, but I keep my parents at an arm's length because if it was up to them, I'd be helping them with every single damn thing around the house. And I see them regularly, but they can also be a little bit of Debbie Downers and not really understand what I'm doing. And if I'm trying to seek their approval for everything, then I wouldn't be where I am with my career because they never wanted me to become a chef. When I
Really?
was first trying to become a chef, they were kind of like disappointed. you
It
know.
will be Kirk Hammett. Just keep trying.
And after I did the Food Network show and beat Bobby Flay, then all of a sudden my parents are going around there to all their friends like, my son's a chef and he beat Bobby Flay, and if I listen to them, and this is not just to my parents, but for anyone who's listening to this, if you have something or someone in your life holding you back, you have to really think, like, leverage and think about, well, what do you ultimately want more? And you have to pick one. Like, you don't have to cut people out of your life, but who you surround yourself with is going to be a big dictator of what you're going to be able to accomplish.
That's true. That's very true. That's where COVID came in a positive way.
Yes.
Because we have to stay away from people.
Yeah. Very true. And also, I think, as terrible as COVID was, it also forced people to reset and reevaluate a lot of things and kind of pay attention to what really matters to them as an individual. And I hope that a lot of people have taken this opportunity to reevaluate that and come out of this better.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's wrap this up. Classic Vox and Hops wrap-up question.
Yeah.
It probably never happens to you very often. You mentioned before we start recording that you're drinking less now. I think that you're drinking less because you're goddamn busy. And you can't afford where we're going with this question. What is your hangover cure?
Oh, my hangover cure. Oh, geez. I am very good about staying hydrated. I make sure to drink a gallon of water a day. I have this container that is basically a quart and a half. 4 quarts equals a gallon. If I drink 3 of those, that's a little over a gallon. So I find that it causes me to pee a lot, but I find that if I'm on nights that I'm drinking a lot, if I just stay very hydrated, especially right before I sleep, just making sure like I get a good amount of water in me, even if that means I have to wake up in the middle of the night, I find my hangovers are manageable. And then really strong black coffee in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you so
Yes.
much for taking the time, having a chat with me about your life, music, and craft beer. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Busy, successful man, and I love having conversations with people like that.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you again for having me. I am very much looking forward to visiting Montreal in the near future, but I am more looking forward to having you and the band back in New York playing shows when things open back up, and catering you guys a shit ton of sandwiches, you and your team. So
I would love that.
I
Super
got you
stoked about
guys.
that. Thank you, Brian, so much. Thank you.
Yes,
Cheers.
thank you.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. I had such a killer time hanging out with Brian. I know that when I come through New York, or if he's up here in Montreal anytime soon, we're going to hook up, we're going to eat some great food, we're going to drink some beer, and we're going to have a great time. Mad respect to Brian. Can't wait to try out that Mission subs. It sounds so cool. Everything he touches turns to gold, so I know that it's going to be amazing. Super stoked I got to connect with Brian, and I'm very, very, very stoked that I got to play that Lost Becomes track in the intro of this episode. If you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast's mailing list. You could do that on my website, VOX&HOPS.com. That's VOXandHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive 1 email a week containing all of the details of everything that has happened throughout the past week in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, including all the details for any episodes which I have dropped throughout the past week, if I have been a guest on someone else's podcast, any cool information about new projects that I have in the works, as well as the updated links for any live interview Thirsty Thursday virtual hangs, and the updated links to the Brutal Awakenings playlists, which are available on both Spotify and Apple Music and are curated by my man Jerry Monk, the metal architect himself. Please do me a favor, sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast mailing list, because I don't want you to miss a single thing. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media. I have 2 more episodes coming at you this week, one on Thursday and another on Friday. But until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops hits.